used to stare at ceilings, talking to the dark, trying to find some meaning in these broken parts. Mom said, boy, just pray, but I was praying hard for more than just a voice to hear me from afar. Wasn't born to riches, but I dreamt in gold. And every night I'd write like the pen was my soul. No cosigns, no stages, just pavement and cold. But I still believe the stories that the silence told. They told me, dreams don't feed you, but I stayed hungry. Tried to sell hope in a world that won't fund me. Dropped my first tape, it barely made noise, but I saw fire in the ashes of that broken voice. All my friends clocked out, said life ain't fair, but I kept clocking in like success was there. With my heart on a beat and my fears in a snare. I ain't make it yet, but I'm almost there.
Do you wonder what your life could be if the stars align? Do you wonder if the dream you had is still alive inside? Would you trade the pain for a quiet night? Would you give it all for another try? Still dreaming, yeah.
Used to write verses just to fight the noise. Headphones in, blocking out the boys who said I'd never make it past the block. Now they screenshot stats when my track gets dropped. But success ain't sweet when your soul feels lost. I paid with sleep, with doubt, with cost. And still I wonder, am I chasing a ghost? Or is this the only way I'll ever feel close? Late night rides through a city asleep, talking to myself like the truth runs deep. Snoop hit my line, said keep that soul. And that one word lit a fire in the cold. So I picked up pace, made pain my fuel. Made every scar part of the golden rule. You don't gotta be perfect, just gotta be real. And sometimes that's the only thing the world can feel. I didn't grow up in no studio. I didn't have a cousin with connections or an uncle with a label. All I had was a cracked laptop, a mic that picked up more static than voice, and this feeling in my chest that if I didn't make music, I'd disappear. I remember burning my first mixtape in a dark room that smelled like dust and ambition. No fans, no promo, just 18 tracks recorded over YouTube beats and hope. I passed it out to people in my neighborhood, gas stations, parking lots. Check it out, it's my tape, I'd say. Most of them took it just to be polite. A few didn't even pretend. One guy handed it back and said, don't quit your day job. And I remember sitting there that night, listening back to my own voice and realizing he wasn't wrong. The tape was bad, the mix was off, the flow was forced, the soul was dead, but it was buried and fermented. I almost let that be the end. But then something wild happened. Late one night I uploaded a freestyle. Nothing special, just me venting on a loop. No promotion, no hashtags, no expectations. Next morning I woke up to a message. Blue check, Snoop Dogg. He said, keep going, you got something, clean it up, don't stop. That one. That one. 10 words, 10 detonations. In that instant, the floor of doubt, I've been standing on cracked open and a ladder appeared. The next month's blurred into 2 tutorial sessions, failures and tiny victories. I saved tips from warehouse shifts to buy decent monitors. I learned how a compressor could tame the wild heart of a kick drum, how subtractive EQ is an act of mercy, how to let silence frame confession. I scrapped the old mixtape, wrote new verses that tasted like the city rain I biked through after rehearsals. Recorded until the cheap mic finally died of exhaustion. When I posted the new tracks, the response wasn't viral. It was a slow, steady heartbeat, the sound of strangers finding pieces of themselves in my story. And Snoop, every few months a fresh line arrived. Proud of the growth, stay hungry. Game needs heart like yours. They were short, maybe typed in the back of a tour van, but they tethered me to the idea that persistence is its own credential. Now years later, I can pay my rent with melodies I tore in vans that aren't mine, crash on sofas that smell like other bands' gear, and thank crowds that know only fragments of my journey. Some likes the set is magic, other nights the monitors fail and I freestyle my way past disaster. But every night before the lights go down, I remember the kid with the silver marker and the Caelum links. I Caelum links and I tell them, anyone listening in the dark behind their own cracked laptop, that belief is a quiet animal, feed it, it learns to roar. Months kept slipping by in neon blip hotel rooms and in rattling airport shuttles, each show another small proof that the ladder Snoop dropped into my life led somewhere higher. But the rungs still felt endless until the night our paths finally crossed in real space. And Backstage at a festival on the outskirts of Austin, humidity thick, guitars howling through distant PA stacks. My set had racked early, it's closed at night. I was wiping sweat off the SPM 404 when a low draw floated in. You the kid with the silver marker CD. There he was, lankier than the posters, grin wide to fold the room in half before nerves could knot my tongue. He clapped me on the shoulder and said, I meant what I typed. Nephew, you ready to cook for real? We ducked into a rolling studio bus that smelled of cedar and fresh vinyl. No entourage, no cameras, just two laptops, a crate of dusty soul records, and decades between our birth dates and takes the second. The needle kissed a crackling road sample. I chopped, he hummed, he scribbled, I layered drums. At 3 a.m. the driver killed the engine to save fuel, but by then the beat was breathing on its own. Warm, patient, undeniable. Snoop leaned back, eyes half closed, and murmured, call this one second win. Over the next 8 weeks we traded stems across time zones. I tracked verses in borrowed hotel closets. He added hook lines from tour buses idling behind arenas. The final mix felt less like a song and more like a joint diary entry. My hunger and his wisdom braided into one frequency. When the label pushed to slot it as a deluxe edition, throw on Snoop refused, trust the track, he told them, let it walk on its own. They launched it as a standalone single instead. Midnight release, no marketing gimmicks, just a black and white cover art and the caption for anybody catching their breath before the next climb. 3 hours later it sat at #1 on every streaming chart we checked. Listeners flooded timelines with stories about late shifts, chemo appointments, final exams, moments when they'd almost bowed out before life granted them a second win. Radio grabbed it, playlist loop. Crowd started singing the bridge louder than either of us, but none of it felt real until Grammy night, when they cracked the envelope for best rappers and read the title we'd scrawled on a coffee-stained session sheet. Cameras hunted for me in the mezzanine, where Snoop glided to the stage, silver suit catching every light in the building. He waved me down, the longest walk I've ever taken. 30 seconds stretched into a lifetime. We're in mics like Tyven Nox. We held a little gold gramophone together. It was heavier than I'd imagined, but lighter than the doubt I'd carried for years. And to Mike he said, see what happens when you don't stop. Then he stepped back and let me speak. I didn't thank algorithms or chart positions. I thanked the kid who kept handing out those handmade CDs, even after someone used one as a coaster. I thanked the busted laptop for surviving long enough to capture a dream. And I thanked a message that once read, keep going, you got something, don't stop. Because 10 words can stretch a whisper into an anthem if you hold them tight enough. When the applause finally settled, Snoop leaned over and whispered, ready for album 2. I smiled, felt the weight of the Grammy in my palms, and realized the trophy wasn't a finish line. It was another rung on the ladder, gleaming in the stage lights, waiting for the next climb.
Do you wonder what your life could be if the stars aligned? Do you wonder if the dream you had is still alive inside? Would you trade the pain for a quiet night? Would you give it all?